I suddenly lost all Spanish-speaking skills and played the dumb tourist American. And after, a minute or two of frustrating conversation back and forth for them at least, they figured I was a tourist and said you have to leave. They went on the subway to go where they were headed originally, and I stayed another 45 minutes shooting my time lapses and video. That's the beauty of this camera. For now, at least, for the next year or two, most people still don't know you're shooting video. I gather that you might want to take advantage of that now, because people are definitely catching on that every still camera that's being made these days shoots video. For some reason, we're still getting away with proverbial murder. Shanghai. Again, this is what a film permit looks like in Shanghai. Even though I couldn't read it, I was working with a local production company that had to clear every single place we went to. This is how we shot the time lapses. You'll see two cameras on the left, one on the right. The obvious thing is, though, you only have a certain amount of days. You don't have time to scout exact locations. If you put your cameras in the wrong position, remember that shot where the sun came right through the middle of the buildings? You've got to find out the day ahead where you're going to set your cameras up at 4 o'clock in the morning the next morning. And this is a tool that we use. It's also an iPhone app called Sunseeker. And it uses augmented reality. You pull your iPhone out and you point it around and it'll show you exactly the path of the sun. And in this case, we realized we were too far to the left and had to move right. We found the exact position where we shoot the next morning. As you saw, the result was perfect. We also got very lucky to get one of the very few clear days in Shanghai. So these days you have tools for $1, a few dollars in your pocket that tell you exactly where the sun's going to be all day, the exact angle and elevation. Very, very useful stuff, especially when this is your wake-up call every morning after going to bed between midnight or 2 a.m. That's just a normal commercial schedule. This is the sun rising exactly where we had planned it to, which is kind of really cool use of technology. As I mentioned, we had two cameras running on the left with different lenses, so you can cut between each and have different looks. You can also set different apertures or different intervals. And on the right, we had two tilt shift lenses. As you know, with wide angle, as you tilt the cameras up because you want to frame less water, for example, the buildings will have distortion. You're going to fold in a little bit. With tilt shift lenses, you actually shift the lens up and you're able to control where your image is without any distortion whatsoever. And they have them here if you want to check them out. And they're really useful tools for this type of work. Remember when I showed you the Russian arm earlier? $250,000 arm? They actually don't have any in Shanghai for rental. They don't exist there right now. So we conjured up this poor man's moving camera on a vehicle. And we mounted a 5D onto two gyro-stabilized two gyros and 3 suction cups. Very kind of, put together, but it worked incredibly effectively. It was like driving around with Russian arm. There's a motor there to help pull zoom, another one pulling focus. This is what these cameras end up looking like these days on larger productions. On top there, you'll see a little wireless transmitter. It's called the Teradek Q, and it transmits your video live via Wi-Fi to your iPhone, your iPad. Here's a little way to lock down the HDMI, so it's not always slipping out or breaking. But through that wireless device, you're able to transmit, I'm going to get back to this in a second, you're able to transmit to a wireless receiver that you see there with a Marshall monitor attached to it. That allows you to either see what's being shot if someone else is operating for you, or in my case, more importantly, to let the client see what we're shooting. Have you ever had your client breathing down your neck, trying to see what you're shooting? It's one of the most annoying things known to man, or to any filmmaker. So hand them their monitor that's wireless, we can walk around Shanghai together and let me do my job. Because at one point, there's a little producer who's always standing on his tippy toes over my shoulder, and I saw his reflection in the glass. I couldn't frame my shot. So you have to use these tools when you're working on a professional production. I'm going to go back real quick and show you this. Quick tip, if you're just getting into video, you need to use neutral density filters, ND filters. Reason being that what makes the 5D and the 7D and the 1D Mark IV and the Rebel, etc., 60D look as beautiful as it does and come to rival cinematic looking films is the shallow depth of field. If you take your 1D Mark IV or 5D out today in the sunlight, you're going to be shooting a 50th of a second, which is the closest thing to a 40th of a second. And you're going to be shooting probably around 100 ISO. You're going to be getting f11 or f16. And therefore, this wonderful camera with this huge sensor will look just like your camcorder. So always put ND filters on it. I try to live within the 2.8 f5 range, f5.6 range at all times with these cameras. Otherwise, you might as well be using a camcorder. Also, obviously, you can mount these cameras onto a bicycle. And there was the clearance we had off the back of the wheel with just one little super clamp, a safety cable, and off the camera goes. You let it roll